I'm not really sure where this started, but I remember watching a video about really spicy ankle pictures, Victorian era, Regency era pictures being shared on OnlyFans, and I thought to myself, you know what? I really feel like talking about World of Warcraft right now. Anyway, is that the intro sequence? Either way, welcome back, everybody. I know it's been a while since you've seen this beautiful face, or maybe it hasn't. I have no idea what your viewing habits are. It could be completely different than what I'm suggesting here. But either way, today, as the intro could have suggested, if not I have cut it out by this point in time, that we actually want to talk about World of Warcraft, because I've been playing a lot of that recently. I mean, a lot. I've recently been playing mostly Classic, though, not any of the actual mainstay Shadowlands right now, or Dragonflight by the time you're watching this, maybe. Mostly because the Classic itself seems to have almost a quaint, quintessential value to it that is completely different or lost in that of modern retail WoW. And I'm not sure how to put my finger on it per se. I know there's like fundamental aspects of these games that vary completely differently than retail WoW itself. And does that necessarily make it more valuable or more entertaining to me? It's really hard to say. I mean, the thing is that trying to compare retail and classic WoW almost feel like completely separate games. Sure, they have similar classes, similar races, and they share, somewhat of a different story or similar story here, and they have similar characters, I suppose. But at that same moment, too, it's like completely different game philosophies and designs when it comes to things like combat, when it comes to, well, I guess crafting is fairly similar, although I guess different, too. But also just in terms of like how you group up with people, how you interact, guilds, things like that almost seem like it gives a different feel to it overall. I guess it does make sense though, because you have to remember, Classic WoW came out way before any of these retail games. I mean, my first introduction into World of Warcraft was the very end, the tail end of Wrath of the Lich King, probably pre-patch to Cataclysm really, and Cataclysm was really my first forte into actual World of Warcraft, despite me getting into it later on. And yet I go back to the Burning Crusade or Vanilla, and it's just like, this is a completely different game, almost. And honestly, I think I just enjoy it for that reason alone. It being different and new in itself, because that alone is fresh. Maybe it is also a bit of nostalgia, too. Everyone talks about it and waxes and wanes poetically. Like, oh, a classic vanilla WoW, it is the purest and most utmost form of a vanilla MMORPG out there, or whatever they like to say. I mean, it is a quintessential MMO, but at the same time, I never had that experience, so I can't really relate to that personally, or at least on an emotional level. So for me, this is essentially just a brand new game. But also compared to like modern contemporary games themselves, Classic WoW has just a completely different pace and feel to it. The fact is that basically everything in WoW is a lot more deliberate, has a lot more time investment into it, and also requires a different level or interaction than the average viewer. I mean, classic modern WoW, the retail WoW I should say, is so passive in a way that you can almost consider it a phone game. Not to mention that a lot of games realistically, they try to minimize like the friction between you and playing, which does sound a bit weird in a sense, but think of like any sort of modern game. You log into the game, you press the button that says quick play, and then you're in a lobby shooting people before you even know what's going on. And 3 minutes, the map has already changed and everything has already been flipped back around, and then rinse and repeat for 1,000 different things. And yet, when I'm playing World of Warcraft, it just seems to last forever. You do one task for seemingly days, hours on end even. You commit to grind a certain path to level out this X or Y, different thing. And in a way, you actually end up, I feel like, becoming more emotionally connected and committed to everything that you do. Everything seems to have at least a huge time investment, so you have some like pseudo reason for it to be important to you just because of that scarcity and time resource sunk into it. I guess it also may have been one of the major like draw points, I guess, for Crosshunt. Not necessarily its huge grind time, but the fact that things actually mattered. If everything was just given to you per se, like you had some sort of creative mode that instantaneously leveled you up to max level and gave you every single resource, yeah, sure, you have the ability to be unlimited creativity wise, but at the same time, you also have no connection to any of these. There's no history, there's no thought or experiences that went into it. It's just yours that you had that you can play around with, which can be fun, but has lesser fun to it. And in the age of instant gratification or pay to get gratification through it, it is just such a completely different feel to it. I imagine that would probably be eliminated if I purchase things like level boosts or purchase things like WoW tokens or other things that I could use to get a huge amount of advantage. But that's similar to using like cheats in old Pokemon games. Sure, you have a full party of level 100s, but game's kind of boring at that point. Then I've watched a lot of other videos where they're talking about the World of Warcraft and how it varies from retail to vanilla, TBC, and the early parts of Wrath of the Lich King. And that is with like group systems and how you actually socialize and interact with people. I haven't done too much of that because I'm just like there casually grinding and reading quests and doing things like that, mostly for story and immersion in the world aspect. But in that sense, this game does also require a decent amount of cooperation. I mean, there's been a lot of times where I just talk to people that I've grouped up with because, hey, we're also doing the exact same quest here, and the mob density here is ridiculous, and the fact that I have to rest in between every single fight to eat makes it very long and drawn out to do any sort of task. So, hey, let's party up, let's chat a little bit, get things going. And I guess in that regard, the design itself actually does force a certain level of social activity, I guess. You can't really do that in retail. I mean, you can do it in retail, I should say, but there's much less reason to because you can 1v7 any mob pack. You can blow through a dungeon in 2 seconds. You can instantaneously group up with a character from the Alliance, Horde, or whatever and do a random dungeon and be out within, a couple of minutes. So in that regard, you don't really need that socialization aspect to you, especially considering that everything is really done for you already, kind of like a modern FPS game where it's just like, yep, click to join lobby, do thing, done. Okay, great. Five people I'll never see again in my entire life. And I think all of those aspects, plus probably a lot more that I just not subconsciously or consciously feeling, probably contribute to me actually enjoying this a lot more than maybe a lot of other games, and that I've actually put a lot more time investment into it than a lot of other games. Another thing that's really kind of not present within Classic or Burning Crusade World of Warcraft versus its modern day counterpart, or even just a lot of modern games in general, is that just absolute constant need for your attention. Now, sure, I give my Classic character a lot of time and a lot of my attention, mostly because it needs that high degree of investment to actually get anywhere. But at the same time, too, I'm not necessarily missing out on a lot. I mean, take a look at a lot of other modern games. What do they have? They have seasons, they have battle passes, they have limited time events with exclusive rewards that if you don't play, you're gonna miss out forever. Ah! But then we have like 4, 5, 6 games, all modern games that you play, that all require that level of attention, that all desire for you to get like 1 or 2 hours of it out of the day, every day, despite what you may be feeling. Then eventually you're just kind of like, yeah, I'm done. I'm just done. I mean, it's kind of with me and Crossout in a certain degree. Because the only thing Crossout seems to be doing nowadays is doing these timed events. And not to say that these timed events are bad or anything. Sure, they're absolutely a great way to introduce new stories, new cosmetics, new gear, things of whatever caliber. That's always great to see. But at the same time, when that's all your game has to offer, eventually you just kind of get tired of a treadmill. You want a break. But then if you take that break, then you miss out on a lot of stuff. And then at that point, it almost kind of becomes like a sunken cost fallacy or whatever it may be, where you feel like because you've missed out so much, I already feel like this game has rejected me, so I'm not going to continue to play it anymore, like a bitter agent or a bitter fan or whatever it is. And yet, that is not present in Classic WoW. If you do not want to log in, that's fine. Sure, go ahead. Whatever. Character's going to be there. You'll get EXP passively. Log back in. Congratulations. You can do it all, whatever you want, where you left off. No real biggie. There isn't any daily login rewards. There isn't anything really there trying to absolutely fight for your time. It's more or less come at your own leisure, really. And in that way, it becomes much less of a chore to play a game, per se, and becomes more or less a game purely about having fun. And sure, while you may be interacting with the game in the exact same way in both cases, it ends up coming from an additional emotional place that I can find to be a bit more gratifying than in the Burning Crusade Classic. That, I guess, another big reason as to why I'd probably prefer the classic version of World of Warcraft over the modern version of World of Warcraft. I mean, take a look at really like any sort of World of Warcraft channel that has put out content for the last 2 years, and you can see some pretty stiff, extremely stiff dissatisfaction across the board with Battle for Azeroth and for Shadowlands. when it comes to the absolutely hard to even really call it archaic way of gaming, but it just feels like a mobile version of World of Warcraft where it's a daily login, you get some gear, and it has like 3 or 4 different RNG multipliers onto it. Yeah, you got a new cloak. Is it really an upgrade? I don't know. Check the stats. Was the agility ranked a little bit too low? Was the stamina ranked a little bit too low? Was the strength ranked a little bit too low? Or whatever else. Did you go there and reforge it and change out X, Y, or Z stat? And it's just like, oh my god. It's like everything in this I have to spend way too much time analyzing. And then go with that. It's like the systems that then encourage you to then replay the content to get a slightly elevated version of it that also can be a lesser version of the exact same gear. So in a way, it almost becomes like an endless treadmill of trying to get the smallest stat improvements on gear that already has a low drop chance. And then already on top of that is in a game where you can't make any sort of solid progress. You can't make any sort of like little grind step. If it doesn't drop, whatever. If it doesn't drop in your stats, we'll double whatever. If it doesn't drop in the stats that are good for you, we'll triple whatever. And at that point, it becomes like a treadmill, but you don't know if you're even on the treadmill per se. It almost feels like you're diverted off, going into random courses that are not nearly as satisfying. You know, in a classic WoW, there's just one piece of gear that you can really get at a set. Sure, yeah, you can, buy it for gold or go and try to do a dungeon for it. Congratulations, you got it, you're done. Don't have to worry about reforging it, don't have to worry about X, Y, or Z thing. It's just it. And that way, it just feels so much more solid and actually making progress, too. Throw in the actual currency that allows you to buy, epic tier gear that is very good, nearly best in slot, that, yeah, even double WoW. It doesn't help, too, that the last 2 expansions for this game, they decided to go the route of making it unbearably crappy intentionally at launch, and then eventually fixing it over the course of the entire thing, despite knowing it is absolute crap. They know the grind is way too long. They know the systems are way too tedious and way too labor intensive to really enjoy, only for them to then lessen the requirements as time goes on to the point where, really, if someone played right at the launch of Shadowlands and right at the end of Shadowlands, the amount of time and cost investment to actually do anything in either one of those seasons is dramatically reduced. You go from maybe you have to do 1/10 of the time realistically by the end of it. And they know that was going to be the issue. But at the same time, too, didn't I just say earlier that the time investment and that the commitment within the previous Burning Crusade and within Wrath of the Lich King made the game feel more impactful and more inspiring in a way? And I think, yes, to a certain degree, but it's not like the time investment in Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King didn't feel like an endless treadmill. Then it was also a completely different system, too, where in Wrath of the Lich King and Burning Crusade, you do a couple of dailies, and maybe that's it. Maybe you can do whatever you want from there. But in the Azeroth and Shadowlands, it's like you do a series of very monotonous, repetitive dailies. You do it 1,000 times over, and you do multiple instances of the same one a day. I mean, everyone can remember in BFA, oh, a turtle made it to the water, because the fucking thing would say it 1,000 gosh darn times, and you have to do that quest so many times just so you could unlock the Dark Iron Dwarves. So in a way, yes, both have a high amount of cost investment, but BFA and Shadowlands went about it in such a way as to be less, I would say, worth it for a lot of people, and just a hell of a lot more annoying, too. But that's just kind of my thoughts with it. For those who actually are a part of the World of Warcraft community, inside my community, which is probably not very many of you, but for those who do, let me know what you guys think about it. Have you guys played Retail WoW? Have you guys played Classic WoW? What's your opinion? What is better? What about either one of them is pretty good in your opinion? Let me know down below, and maybe we can have a conversation about it. But thank you all for stopping by, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.